Why did we go to the periphery of Europe, to Romania? And why did we go to Bucharest to explore the periphery of this city? Romania is the youngest European Union member state, and the contradicting realities of a post-socialist city are still very visible here. So this is an important learning experience for enhancing the awareness of Europe. But a more important reason is the majority of European citizens lives in the urban periphery. So it's the everyday landscape for a large number of people. And the European Union has a strategic goal: sustainable growth. The urban periphery is the strategic resource for any city. We are competing here for residential areas, for commercial areas, for traffic, but also for open spaces, for nature reserves, and for agriculture. So how to manage this negotiation for space? This was the question we wanted to explore further in this intensive program. So we took the students of our international master program in landscape architecture to this site, and we thought it would be a good idea to also join architects and urban planners into this exercise. So we asked the University Libre of Brussels to join with architects and urban planning students, as well as the Estonian University of Life Sciences. And the Johan Winkel University for Architecture and Urban Planning in Bucharest, they agreed to host a workshop on site in Bucharest. And we were lucky to receive funding from the European Union through the Lifelong Learning Program for implementing the project. During our workshop, we had a very good support by the local staff members, but also by a group of international teachers who joined us from the different partner schools. They contributed in the form of lectures, panel discussions, and supervision of the students. And they also had a great learning experience.
It's amazing to see what the students are able to come up with in such a short period of time. We give them a task, usually very broadly defined, and as the days go on, we see them becoming increasingly more focused and really developing a vision, and we're able to see that vision evolve from the very first thoughts to the final product in just a matter of days, and I find that extremely exciting. And the site itself is so challenging and so interesting by nature of the objectives of such an intensive program. We have to choose something that's incredibly difficult, and I think we chose something that really presents challenges that these students have never seen before. I think they're developing the ability to view a project through the eyes of many different professions, since we're asking them to do financial models and sustainability and participation and governance and a lot of other things that typically they aren't asked to do in their courses. We're asking them to step considerably out of their comfort zone and really into a range of competencies that they don't have much experience with. So it's learning by doing at a very high speed, I think. The word we used yesterday was that it's kind of a palimpsest. It has everything in it. There's never been any real planning done for it, so everything has kind of grown up spontaneously and with no real order. So it's not even controlled chaos, it's really kind of complete chaos. And we're asking the students to superimpose some sort of order on this and a concept. And I think that's a real stretch of a challenge for a planner. I think we're really asking them to use all of their competences at once, and I think it's excellent practice for them. For my own part, I have to say every time I participate in a program like this, I really walk away wondering which of us learned more, because these are always tremendous learning experiences for me, both in terms of educational methodology and how students manage a project and how to create a design brief that really gives them maximum flexibility but still gives them sufficient guidance. So in that sense, it's a very useful experience, I think, and I come away from these learning more and bringing that to the next project that we go to.
The site we have chosen for the project was located in the southeastern periphery of Bucharest. It was very huge and complex, difficult to understand, but full of potentials. We had the river Dâmbovița, which is crossing the city from west to the east, mainly in a canalized form. There were massive agricultural and glasshouse production areas still left in the area, but also huge collective housing estates that date back to the 1970s. The recent developments are retail centers, shopping malls, parking squares, and also residential areas on an informal basis that were moving into the periphery. There was a military area, a rubbish dump, a sewage plant, and an electricity power station. So everything you could ever find in the periphery. But on top of all, there was a 200-hectare ruin which dates back to a giant lake project of the late Ceausescu era. This lake project has been abandoned after the revolution and left on its own, and it turned into the most important biotope of the city. But there's also a hidden story, which is the story of the Văcărești monastery. This wonderful 18th century complex has been voluntarily demolished by the regime in 1985. It used to be the genius loci of the place, and today we find the Sun Plaza Mall exactly on its location. So what we made clear to the students is that there is no public planning commission for such type of fragmented urban landscape at that size. So there's no point in waiting for such type of commission to come from somewhere. The role of the planning professions in that context is to identify the problem, to identify the task and the design on their own. And for the students, this was a great challenge. And confronted with this high degree of uncertainty, we proposed to use the scenario method to go a step further. The scenario method is very common in future studies. In our context, we asked the students to get back from their observation of the site to a more global level, to ask which are the major driving forces that are influencing this area. Driving forces could come from economy, from ecology, from technology, or simply from changing values. And there can be different trends. An economy can go up or down, and environmental pressure can become stronger or weaker. And in this constellation, there are different trend scenarios that could be developed and then translated into the site in the form of storylines or narrations. So the students came up with very different scenarios, more positive or more negative. We had very optimistic views like economic booms, a green revolution, a green dream, but also pessimistic views. There could be a natural disaster, there could be a continuous downturn, and what would happen then? But in the end, it was the positive scenarios that were selected for further development, which is quite understandable. We tend to work towards a positive end. It has to be clear that a scenario is not a prediction of the future. It is just an option of a possible future. And they create a discussion basis for different sectors to make decisions about long-term strategies across the sectoral boundaries. This was a very important learning objective that we wanted the students to understand this method and to apply it to the site.
I think it seems to be very interesting that we can work with different cultures and different people, and also the place, Romania, I have never been here before, so it seems to be a very interesting destination where to come and see the culture.
Yes, of course, these kind of connections here as just students will help us to see how we have to react and what we must expect from the other, and what is the common language between us, because we found that there are we use the same language but we mean different things, so it's like the first step how we have to deal with these situations in the future.
A lot of people just coming here, coming from different backgrounds and studying one place, not one idea, just one place, and coming up with a lot of ideas, and that's really important. And it's it can be a case study for future European projects. It can serve as a stepping stone for something else, I think.
Yeah, first of all, the cooperation. I think it's really important to give these funds to us, young generation students, but also to professionals so they can cooperate, and so to create this sort of European planning system. And it's really good to start in countries that have a more problematic issues, like in the urban context, like Romania or mostly the southern European countries. I think they should invest more, and it's very good, I think, to have different views of one issue from different European countries. It's very large, not only surface, but it's very complex because it's very diverse and fragmented, and it's very challenging and very impressive to work on such a large scale. I think that's the most impressive.
And secondly, I'm hoping that teachers will do the same thing for the students, for the other students that haven't participated, and for their colleagues actually, because there are lots of new things, a lot of new approaches to both landscape and planning, and this is something that shouldn't stop here. That's a very clear. And I think through this workshop there is a certain materiality that's which is very good. I mean, I'd love the European Union to mean this for me, but for the students also. It's
Certainly, what this workshop shows is that students and teachers and assistants and experts coming from different parts of Europe are able to find a common ground where they can deal with these issues. So supposedly, yes, the Bucharest case study speaks to them. Experience of working with people on a very short lapse of time, with people they don't personally know, and being able somehow to find some group dynamic very fast. Well, this is going to be certainly a competence, a skill they'll need in the future.
It was very interesting to see how they lined up to the same ideas, and this is very interesting, how they discovered each other and they discovered their background as urban planners or landscape planners, and this was more important for me to notice. It was fun.
For me particularly, it's interesting to see how things work out in Romania, since I'm from Serbia, and like how are different influences and how is this transition working in the domain of landscape architecture in this country. The theme is very, very good and very, I think it's something very in the moment, very important everywhere in the world, and I think the topic is very good.
I think the most amazing thing I learned is the way you can release all the barriers and try to think in this scenario type, and to let your imagination flow, and thus constructing a concept without the barriers we used to have in our school projects. And this is something I mostly learned from the German colleagues. I'm more European now.
It is something very essential. It is something very essential, especially in this European context where we are all together, and with the interaction of the different cultures. I mean, the young people, and especially here young professionals, are essentials for the future of the European Union. So they have this, I would say, this opportunity to work together and to exchange the opinions. And it is, make Europe together and growing together by exchanging their meanings and their cultural identities. I hope there will be some results also transmitted into into this university, and also to the politicians or local authorities. It depends if they are ready to get the benefits from that.
This fragmented urban landscape that we explored was simply so diverse and bizarre that none of the formulas that the students knew before could have been applied alone. And this created a momentum of crisis, a crisis caused by the fact of having reached the own limits of knowledge and competence. And the most important learning objective of this workshop was to lose the fear of reaching this limit and to overcome it. In the end, all the groups came up with an own formulation of a vision for the area. And I really liked the results, but I also think that the process was much more important than the product. Interestingly, many of the proposals introduced the concept of urban agriculture. And this is interesting in the context of Bucharest, where there is still much agriculture left in the urban fringe. Agriculture can play a strategic role for the urban periphery. It can become a multifunctional space at the interface of economy, ecology, and recreation. And raising this issue here in the context of Romania and Bucharest in particular was quite important. We hope that it can become a research question for the future.
Collective decisions, so you don't actually have to convince anyone, because the steering committee is representing, or is supposed to represent all of the actors.